Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we would like to present you, together with my colleague Tomasz Balcerak, we would like to present you the topic structured electronic invoices and the national e-invoicing system, which is going to come into force in Poland since 1st of July 2024. At the beginning, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Katarzyna Judkowiak. I'm a tax advisor and partner responsible for tax advisory services at Rödl Partner. Today, together with my colleague Tomasz Balcerak, who is also tax advisor and partner and responsible for BPO services rendered by Rödl Partner, we would like to present you our topic. Okay, first of all, about our agenda. At the beginning, I would like to tell you a few words about the digitalization in general of revenue administration in Poland, which is quite advanced, and how Poland is in comparison with other countries, what are the objectives of such changes. Furthermore, we will present a platform, how national e-invoicing system is working, what kind of documents are issued use this platform, and what are the templates of document, how is the access to the platform, who can what do there. Then my colleague will tell you a few words about electronic workflow of the documentation as a tool of integration with the system. And at the end, we will summarize everything and let you also know what are, how is the best way, how to prepare for the changes, what should be done, etc. At the beginning, regarding the digitalization of the tax system in Poland, digitalization started more or less in 2016. It was the first year when Polish entrepreneurs, taxpayers, first large companies were obliged to introduce standard audit file for tax, and such a change started first of all in 2016 for huge companies. I don't have a problem with the presentation. Unfortunately, the presentation is not signing the slide I would like to show you at the moment. Okay. First it started for large entrepreneurs, then medium size and small, later on also for micro. All companies at the end needs to fulfill to use standard audit file for tax. Further requirement connected with digitalization was introducing in Poland of split payment mechanism. It means that VAT amount is paid to the amount of the tax of a special bank konto that is of the taxpayer, but this bank konto cannot be used for payments of any payments. Let's say it can be used only for a payment of the tax, and the net amount goes to the seller. Furthermore, we have a system of clearinghouse. We have also whitelist. We have also online cash registers. In case of tax inspections, more and more often tax authorities are sending requests by email or also in electronic way of communication. Then they are asking for documents which can be sent also as PDFs or other documents. So we do not need to work with papers actually, but everything is done electronically from the bookkeeping system. We can extract data that the tax authority would like to have. They are able to analyze that. And also there are further standard audit files for tax. They are only for requests on demand of the tax authority in case of tax control. So also the tax authorities are asking from there, and they are able to analyze gross data today very often. And the next huge step in the digitalization of Polish tax system is the introducing of KSeF. This is a national e-invoicing system and the platform that is going to be used for these purposes. For all taxable persons that are seated in Poland, so this is important, this is for companies with its seat in Poland, obligation is since July 2024. Companies that are exempted or they are concluding exempted activities in meaning of VAT are obliged to introduce to KSeF since January 2024. KSeF is also obligatory since July 2024 for all companies that are seated abroad but have in Poland fixed establishment for VAT purposes. It's important because only the registration for VAT purposes without having fixed establishment in Poland, like for instance some branch employees conducting for a longer period activities, it's not enough to have the necessity to use KSeF. The goals of this is first of all the reduction of VAT gap, and in general Poland has achieved a lot in this regard, because the VAT gap when we started was very big and right now it's much smaller. Furthermore, it's increase of tax revenues but also limitation of informal company in the country and tightening up to the system. Other countries, regarding the other countries, please next slide. The Italy, I would say, is much forward Poland, and this is the most digital country taking into consideration tax administration, because in Italy such invoicing system is working since few years. Also, France wanted to introduce the system in 2024, but as I heard a short time ago, they will postpone it till 2025. Hungary has some elements of it, and Spain also. There is a real-time reporting, but with reference to selected activities. And also what is important, in some third countries, such e-invoicing system is working. For instance, Saudi Arabia introduced VAT in 2018 and also with electronic invoices from the beginning. Regarding the Polish, what is important also at this stage for the Polish, yesterday the Polish Ministry of Finance announced that further regulations are going to be published during the month of November. So right now, today's presentation is based on the regulations that we have, first of all, enforced. Secondly, there are some projects of regulation, but they are not in force at the moment and they can change. But also not everything is already regulated, and some other acts are going to appear during the November. So there could be some changes in this regard. Of course, we will inform you about it, but it needs to be paid attention that not everything that we have today, this is the last version that could be. In how the system is working in general. So at the moment we have like today we have following situation. Every invoice issuer can issue an invoice using its own bookkeeping system, using some platform, commercial platform for these purposes, using some other system like stock system, or using Word, Excel, or even can take a piece of paper and write an invoice by hand. This is everything okay, can send it using by PDF, per email, traditional post, or commercial portal to the invoice recipient. How it's going to be change everything in the future? The invoice issuer will not be able to issue an invoice from its own system. There is going to be just one invoice format instead of many, and the invoice that is going to be issued needs to be in structured form. This is going to be XML data, and such data fulfilling requirements. There is already a structure of a new document, which I'm going to comment later. But generally only one invoice, and this invoice is invoice template, and this invoice template is going to be sent to KSeF, to the platform. The platform is going to check whether it's correct or not, taking into consideration the structure. So there could happen that, of course, not all mistakes, like if there is mistake in the pricing, in the tax identification number, in the address, etc. This is not a mistake in the structure. So, of course, such a mistake is going to be accepted, such invoice is going to be issued, and a unique identification number is going to be granted to such an invoice. In such a case, the invoice is issued and is going to be forwarded to the invoice recipient. Invoice recipient can download the invoice as an XML or PDF from the system. Later on, there is a plan to make some connections between KSeF and data banks that are available in Poland, like, for instance, a white list, which is a list of all taxpayers with its VAT numbers, valid numbers, and bank accounts. So, and there is also an address of the taxpayer, etc. So at the end, this is a plan that KSeF should also check whether under the VAT number that is selected, correct address, for instance, correct taxpayer is mentioned. But today, such a function, this is not going to be granted at the beginning, this is for sure, but this is some approach for the future. And as just to sum up, it means that a new invoice that is going to be issued, the e-invoice, this is not a PDF as we know, but this is an invoice issued and received in structured format. And this invoice can be sent only through interface software, which is this national e-invoicing system. And the invoice needs to have a unique identification number, which is assigned to it. Of course, there are some different, my colleague will tell you about possibilities how to connect the bookkeeping system with the national e-invoicing system, because in some case, if the company has a lot of documents, this is not possible to enter national e-invoicing system and just issue invoices there. What are the objectives of KSeF? This national e-invoicing system is a system run by head of National Revenue Administration and has following tasks: issuing invoices, as I already said, after checking whether they are correct in case of structure, and if they are not correct, then the system is going to send an information about refusal of issuing such an invoice, and the taxpayer needs to correct it and send it to the national e-invoicing system. But system as such will not inform the taxpayer that there is a mistake in invoice number 1010 in field number 12, for instance, in case if the package of invoices is sent. The system is just going to say rejection or mistake in the invoice, and the taxpayer needs to find which invoice it refers to and needs to find what is the mistake, where the mistake is. So that's why some commercial solutions which could be used together with national invoicing system, kind of connectors, they help, they have, most of them, they have a function to validate data before they are sent to the national invoicing system, and in such a case, if there is a mistake, then the taxpayer receives information that in this invoice number 10 in field number 12 there is a mistake, please correct it. Another functionality of the system is storing invoices for 10 years, although we have collapse period in Poland of 5 years, but the documents are going to be stored by the tax administration for 10 years. Of course, also the buyer will receive all invoices via the system, so there is no other necessity to send invoices in other way. But what's also important, first of all, there is no possibility to send any attachment to the invoices via system. So if the company, for instance, needs to attach to the invoice some protocols, some other proofs of delivering of goods or services, conducting services, etc., then there is no such a possibility to do it via system. What could be done, for instance, there could be generated a link from the system connecting, and this link could appear on the invoice and containing the link to the documents that should be attached to the invoice. Or another possibility is that the taxpayer sends invoice via a national e-invoicing system because has no other possibility, but additionally sends per email another documentation, and then the taxpayer can combine both cases. In case of issuing invoices to foreign entities for transactions like the most important are intra-community delivery of goods or exportation of goods, of course, all that documents needs to be in e-invoicing system, and invoices needs to be issued by the system. There is a possibility to such an invoice needs to be issued via national invoicing system. A special QR code needs to be generated, and this code should be on the invoice, and then the invoice can be sent to such a buyer via other way, like for instance per email, or as it was done before. The same refers to invoices issued to foreign entities, for instance, only registered for VAT purposes that are not obliged to use the system. So the invoice in such needs to be in national invoicing system, but the taxpayer can send additional documents to the buyer because the buyer can not use the system. Of course, also the system is sending the invoices and analyzing the correctness of the provided data. There are two, during this year, what could be done, there are two methods of invoicing. This is the traditional one, and KSeF, because KSeF is going to be obligatory in the next year. The invoice recipient, if you would like to introduce KSeF during this year, and about the benefits I will tell in later on, it can be done even today because the platform in such is already working and can be used. Then the invoice recipient needs to agree to use structured invoices in such a case. Later on, when it's obligatory, such approval is not going to be necessary, but today, yes, it is. And in such a case, but if you would like to introduce such a system and the buyer will say, no, I don't want to use structured invoices right now because it's too early, etc., then, and you would like to do it because you would like to have some benefits of it, then of course this is also possible, and what you need to do is to issue an invoice using the KSeF as it's general how it looks like, and later on send such an invoice via email as it was agreed with the customer. And in such a case, it means that you are using KSeF even if the buyer doesn't want it. Of course, the structured invoice is considered to be issued on the day of its uploading to the national e-invoicing system. This is at the seller side. So when the company would like to issue an invoice, needs to upload it to the system, and in such a case, the invoice is issued. So this is a real-time reporting. It's not going to be possible to issue, for instance, the invoice with the data of let's say 1st of November, but to issue this invoice today. Such an invoice will have today's data. At the other hand, the buyer will receive an invoice at the time point when the invoice is approved by the system. So if the system approves an invoice, gives a unique identification number, in such a case, it means buyer received an invoice. And of course, it's not relevant when the buyer will download the invoice technically or will do it, because it can be that, for instance, the company will not download the invoices for longer time period. So in such a case, the invoice is already considered as received by the buyer. In 2024, this is going, first half of the year, this is going to be exactly the same, like it looks like during this year. And starting from July, if this data is not going to postpone, because this is also possible that maybe the Polish government, the new one, will postpone it a little bit, but if not, then 1st of July, this is the data when it's obligatory. Then we will have only invoices used via national e-invoicing system. What's also important that there are some penalties for not issuing invoices via system. It's not going to get, generally, it's not going to possible issue any other invoice than via national e-invoicing system at one hand, but at the other hand, the penalties are from the year 2025. And the penalties are up to 100% of the VAT amount. And if the invoice doesn't show any VAT amount, then this is up to 18.7% of the total amount due shown on the invoice. So this is very important, that actually when the system is introduced, there is no other possibility to issue any other documents apart of the system, only in case of some mistake or offline, but I will tell you about it a little bit later. And of course, in such a case, there is no approval of the recipient invoice necessary, and the invoice is considered to be issued on the day of uploading the invoice to the KSeF. Of course, there will all that system refers only to B2B and B2G invoices, so business to business or business to government, and business to customer sales, like to people that are natural persons that are not conducted as entrepreneurs. They are not going to be all invoices issued for them are not going to be subject of KSeF. In case if the KSeF is down or it's offline, there is going to procedure for it, but actually we are waiting for some regulations. The general rule, let's say, which we can see at the moment is following, that if because the system cannot work due to different reasons. First of all, there are going to be concluded maintenance works via authority, and they know about it, so they are going to do some breaks. During that break, it's not possible to issue invoices. But also it can be some mistake, it can be some error, it can be just some situation that enables use the system. And of course, also it can be that the taxpayer is offline, has no internet, has a problem with computer, etc. In such a cases, generally, there is going to be an information from the tax authority that there is a problem with the system, and taxpayer can issue invoice using the general, let's say, methods that we have today. So can use its own system, can write it on the paper, etc. And when the system is working, the taxpayer needs to upload such an invoice to the system. But in such a case, the invoice is issued at the time point when it's issued. So we for the first time, let's say. So such and is received by the buyer and the time point when it's received by the buyer. These are our general regulations are going to be enforced. Although the invoices can be uploaded like a few days after. And when all invoices are uploaded, because they need to be, if such an invoice needs to be corrected, for instance, due to some mistake, then the taxpayer needs to wait with the correction. First of all, needs to wait till the invoice is uploaded, and then when the KSeF invoice is issued, can make a correction invoice. Regarding the documents that are going to be issued, generally the structure or all elements that are required by the law today, they are going to be required later on. So there are no significant changes in the logical structure of the invoice as such. But of course, there are some additional elements that needs to be on the invoice. I will show you some templates so you can see how it looks like. But what I wanted to say also that there are some points, for instance, that VAT Act allows to issue an invoice in such manner, and today's structure doesn't allow to do it. So in such a case, it can happen that some changes in invoicing of the company are going to be necessary only due to the reason that the structure doesn't allow to issue invoice in other way. I will explain it a little bit later. Of course, there are some all fields that are on the invoices are split into 3 categories. They are obligatory fields. They are marked with some asterisks, and without such information, without fulfillment of obligatory fields, the invoice cannot be issued. Also, there are some contingent fields. These fields are obligatory only if the company meets certain conditions that are necessary for it. For instance, one of examples, if the invoice is issued in foreign currency, then the exchange rate needs to be mentioned on the invoice. So if the invoice is in Polish currency, then no other requirements are necessary. But if the taxpayer will issue an invoice in other currency, then needs to give the exchange rate, even if, for instance, the invoice is for intra-community delivery of goods. So at the end is 0, but there is no other option to issue such an invoice. And there are also some optional fields that are additional information that could be mentioned, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't need to be. This is, for instance, all the CN codes, all procedures like split payment, GTU. It can be mentioned on the invoice, or it doesn't have to be. Also, if there is if there is a chain transaction, for instance, and there is another delivery place and place of like buyer's seat, then also such information can be in these additional fields. Generally, the platform is in Polish language, but also in English. But invoice layout in such some information like seller, buyer, etc. This is only in Polish, but it's possible to put especially the information in optional fields in other language. About other currencies, I've already told you. Also, there is quite a lot of place for optional fields, like footer field 3 times 3050 characters. So this is quite a lot. And if taxpayer wants to put additional information on the invoice, can do it. At the moment, of course, today's in case if the company has some internal transfer of goods within one enterprise, like for instance, the company is also registered for VAT purposes in Germany and has movements of goods from Polish stock to the German stock. In such a case, according to the Polish Ministry of Finance, this is a case when actually there is no invoice should be issued, because this is internal transfer and no sale of goods. But according to the tax statement of the tax authority, in such a case, there should be issued an invoice within KSeF. At the moment, it's not clear how the situation looks like with intra-community acquisition of goods and import of services invoices. Because Poland, in the application to European Union, to the European Commission about introducing of KSeF, wanted to have this also included and received such a decision. So based on the decision, this is possible that also such transactions are going to be needs to be mentioned in KSeF at one hand. At the other hand, the seller has no obligation to issue invoices using the KSeF. So if yes, it should be done by the buyer. But at the moment, there are no local regulations saying anything about it. It's not mentioned neither. It's mentioned neither in the structure that we have nor within the regulations that are in force. But of course, we cannot exclude at this stage that further changes are going to be published, and within the changes, such an obligation will appear. So this is a topic that needs to be monitored in the future. Invoices issuing to foreign entities, as I said, they need to contain a QR code, and then they can be sent in other way, like for instance via email. And this QR code, the general task is just to be able to find such an invoice in the system later on. Regarding the appendices, as I said, no possibility to send it, but it can be done accept of the system or with generated link. Regarding the invoice samples, as you can see, this is the first sample for the sale, local sale. This is a sales invoice, and you can see here above a KSeF invoice number, which is this is the unique number that is going to be granted to each invoice by the system. And this number starts always with NIP, with tax identification number of the taxpayer. There are 10 signs. Then this is the data of issuance of the invoice, of granting such a number. So this is that date. And then this is another signs. This is the last two. This is a control sum, and the other ones, the 12 ones, this is the some technical number that is granted by the system. And each invoice receives such a number. What's also the plan is that furthermore, it will be necessary during bank transfers to put such a number in the bank transfers. At the moment, Polish banks are not ready to receive so many information and such a long number, especially if somebody is paying, for instance, for 10 different invoices at once. So they are working to prepare the system for it, but also such a change is going to be in the future. Maybe this is going to be in 2025, not earlier, but maybe also later. And as you can also see, you have all positions that are necessary here. Here, for purposes of our today's webinar, we put these positions, etc., everything in English, but this is going to be at the end in Polish on the invoices. And you have also total amount due, CN code, which is not necessary but can be here. And of course, this exchange rate is necessary always if we have a US dollar or another currency. And then the system makes a calculation, and this amount of tax that you can see, this is calculated by the tax amount in Polish currency. This is calculated by the system. Of course, there will be also necessity to make payment details, but already lots of companies or payment information is mentioned in the invoices. There is a special, this is the invoice for a delivery of goods. This is additional information that are not necessary, but they could be mentioned there. There is another template for invoice issued in case of receiving down payments, and also a special invoice that it needs to be issued as a final invoice in connection with down payments. And here there's one problem also, that at one hand, taking into consideration VAT regulations, that if the taxpayer receives a down payment in the amount of 100% of the amount due, then no final invoice is going to be is issued. But taking into consideration KSeF, such an invoice needs to be generated. So this is also a kind of discrepancy between the system and the structure. And of course, we as tax advisors already mentioned this, and maybe we hope that it's going to be changed or corrected. Another thing that is important, all correcting invoices issued to structured invoices needs to be in a structured way also. So there is a special form for correcting invoices. And if the invoice was issued during downtime or offline, then it needs to be, first of all, it needs to be uploaded to the system, and then can correction invoice be issued. And all correcting, each correcting invoice needs to include the identification number of the original invoice issued in KSeF. So that long number needs to be mentioned in correcting invoice. And here there is also another problem, because taking into consideration the regulations, there is a possibility to issue, for instance, correcting invoice for some discounts for yearly cooperation, and in such a case, these discounts refer to many invoices issued during the year. In some cases, there are really many hundreds of invoices. Then it's possible to put just a period, and such an invoice is okay. But actually, today in the structure, it's not possible. If such identification number of each original invoice is not mentioned in KSeF, then an invoice is not going to be issued. So this is also another problem. This is especially important in case of agreements for yearly cooperation. All that agreements are concluded by the end of the year generally, or by the beginning of the next year. So this is one of the topics that need to be paid attention to. Of course, correcting notes, as we know today, are not going to be necessary anymore, so there will be no correcting notes. Because first of all, the buyer cannot correct anything, and the seller, if needs to correct something, then via correction invoice. In such a case, if the seller is going to issue an invoice and is going to make a mistake in the names, in the buyer's name, or will issue an invoice to the wrong company, let's say, put the wrong identification number, then in such a case needs to issue a correcting invoice till 0, correct everything, and issue a new invoice. And of course, duplicates are not going to be relevant. Also, this is only exception in case of offline or something like that, but generally not more, because we do not, everything is in the system, everything is stored correctly. So in case that somebody would like to come back to receive an invoice one more time, this is not, this is possible. Here you can see how the correcting invoice looks like and what elements are there which are necessary. And this is the template. And shortly about the access. For the companies. In case of companies, there are two possibilities. First of all, this is by filling of hard copy notification, and this notification needs to be sent to the tax authority, and then tax authority can grant right to the system, and these rights are more or less for administrative role. It means that this person can grant further rights to the system to another employees, and this can be done to the whole system, including giving further rights to the system, or only to the part of issuing sales invoices or receiving purchase invoices. But also it's possible that for instance, the person can have an access only to download some selected purchase invoices, so not to the whole system. To log into the system, there is necessary to have or electronic signature or there can be used also authorization code token, but also for people for Polish people having a PUAP, also portal zaufany is a possibility how to enter into the system, and in such a case any other is connected. From the site necessary for the company, it can be also electronic seal, one of the possibilities. Thank you very much, and Tomasz, please continue.
Thank you. If we speak about national e-Invoicing system, that we have to recognize this this platform for the accounting perspective, and we have to answer for this platform. It is for us a curse or a blessing. And for our experience, that we can say that it is for us a blessing, because we can organize a new our process in bookkeeping department, because we have differentiated accounting department in some companies. And in these companies, we can differentiate accounting department which they are paperless, and this department eliminate paper in accounting process, but this department don't use some electronic tools which they help them for the realize accounting process for the posting and preparing some tax declaration. And we have also a second department, and this department use the special electronic tools which them help them for the automatization and digitalization, preparing and posting some documentation and preparing some tax declaration. And the third type of departments in accounting department is department where hard copy documents, including invoices, still prevail. And I want to focus only the second type of accounting department, which they use only electronic documentation, because these departments are very effective, because the paper, we have to answer that paper is slow. Paper is for us the waste time, because we spend a lot of time for the finding documentation in special and such files which we have in our department. And we have to change our thinking about the documentation, about the process in the bookkeeping. And we have to think that this process should be electronically and digitalization. And this is the reason why we recommend for our client that they should eliminate and avoid paper documentation in the accounting department. And this chance is for us national invoicing system, because we will don't use any paper invoices, because we will have only electronic and structuring invoice, which we will download from platform, national invoicing platform. And how looks accounting department after implementing national invoicing system? And we can differentiate two models. And the first models concern the small company, because we understand the situation that we have the small companies, and these companies produce not a lot of documentation, not a lot of invoices. And we can say that these companies will use only national invoicing platform, and documents are downloaded directly from this platform and forwarded in the agreed form to the accounting department. And we have to speak together with the accountant and with this company, because we have to know that we will have all documentation which we have to post in national invoicing system, but the companies have to check that this all invoices which we will have in this platform concern this company or not, because we can find also mistakes, and some buyer can use any mistake our NIP number, and after this we receive also not our invoices, and we have to remember of this. And accountant should be received from the client that this invoices concern correctly this company which we should be post and prepare some tax declaration. And we will expect from our client that they send us some confirmation about it, that this invoices concern directly this company. The second model, after the implementing national invoicing system, concern directly bigger company, and this company produce a lot of invoices which we will have to post in our accounting programs. And this model looks like that the accounting department will use the electronic connection with the national invoicing system platforms and to download documentation without logging into national invoicing system. And in this model, we will recommend using special airflow documentation and because this program help administration department of this company and accounting department of this company organize airflow documentation in this company, because if we have and download a lot of documentation and invoices from this platform, that we have to check that this invoices concern directly this company, and this invoice is agree with our agreement which we sign with our buyer. And this is for us necessary if we will use some special programs and tools which help us confirm this documentation, and we will have time for checking that it is concern us. In the next slide, I will show how looks the example for the connector for the cost invoices, because we have to differentiate the cost invoices and sales invoices. And we speak about it with different service providers who and which help us and help our client, because our client have different solution for the for this new regulation, and we will speak about it with different proposal. And this example show us electronic document workflow, and this is the special tools which we have, which we see in this place. And these tools work like this, that this tool will send a request via a connector to the national e-Invoicing platform. And after receiving this request, platform will send answer via the connector and special list of invoices which we can find in this platform. And after this, this connector will send some confirmation and list of these invoices to the electronic document workflow. And after this, if we will have this all documentation, all invoices in this platform, accounting department and the administration department of such companies can check if this invoice concern this company or not. And we see that this help us for the organization, for the accounting department. And we know that our client will be happy that they will use this, because we know that we should use some tools which help us in our work. In the second example, concern the sales invoices, and this solution looks like this, that the client will send some special files in XML form to the electronic workflow programs, and after this, this program will send via KSeF connector these files to the electronic e-Invoicing system in government, in KSeF. And after the uploading of these invoices, national e-Invoicing system KSeF sent us to this connector answer that this invoice is agree with the format, and send a special number and confirmation that this invoice was processed and they are correct, and this documentation will send to the buyer which we want to send, and prepare this documentation. And after this way, connector sent this invoices with the special number from the national e-Invoicing system to the electronic workflow documentation program. And after the processing these invoices, this tool sent this documentation, and ERP program can upload this new invoices, sales invoices, to the accounting program. And we can say that it will be good for our client and for for each companies, but we know that our client use different accounting programs, and this solution can be different, and we will use different tools in our work. Thank you. Kasia, could you take over the voice?
Yes, thank you. Could you put next slide, please? Okay, how to get ready for the implementation and what you should pay attention to. Please, next one. As you could see the, please, next slide. As you could see during the presentation, and then next one. This is a process that it needs to be considered on different levels of the company. This is not only the bookkeeping project or finance team project regarding the invoices, but also regarding the whole cooperation of different departments in the company, because if some purchase invoices are coming, somebody needs to check whether we have goods that we ordered, whether we are really a recipient, who is responsible for such an invoice, if there are lots of projects within the company, or lots of travel expenses and such invoices, documents, that everything needs to be considered. What's also relevant, how the orders look like, how in general the system of approving of the documentation and of workflow of the documentation looks like. What should change, what are the changes, how we should, what kind of elements are needs to be included in the invoice, especially if the system is not 100% compatible with Polish requirements and regulation, and if some changes were made manually, like for instance correct exchange rate for tax purposes. And of course, at the end, if the invoices are correct, they are going to be sent to KSeF. The same in case of purchase invoices. This is also relevant to organize the processes from the beginning, taking into consideration that the invoices are not going to be received by the people, but to the KSeF altogether. If we think about benefits, please, next slide, of the whole process, then at one hand there will be a shorter period for VAT refund, but there are also further conditions that needs to be fulfilled, so this is not so relevant, I would say. But what's relevant, there is no need to collect documentation underlying correcting invoices, because this is comes from the system, how it's working, and from the regulations that they are considered at the time point when they are issued, received. Furthermore, there is no need to provide a copy of the documents, duplicates, but of course in case of intra-community supply of new vehicles, this is also a topic, but only in this regard. And in general, please, next slide, there is also a huge advantage that there is no necessity to prepare and send invoices in standard audit file for tax invoices. This is JPK FA in case if the tax authority requests the company on it, because all companies using KSeF they do not need to prepare this standard audit file for tax, because actually it contains more or less similar data. And of course it can be also a little bit in a different way, structured way of archiving documents within the company, because invoices are stored in the system for 10 years. But what's important, this is only invoices, but not additional documentation, like for instance proofs that 0 VAT% can be used, or any another documents, additional documents. For such documents we need to have our own archiving system, and of course not all information are mentioned or are covered by the system at the moment, like for instance importation of goods. And there is no need to have information on invoice reception because all invoices are issued at this time, at the time when the invoice is uploaded into the system. Thank you very much for your attention to today's presentation. If you have any questions, please write us. It can be written in the chat, and we will contact you in the next days. So we will answer all questions that are going to appear in this. Or you can also send us an email. We will send you the presentation afterwards. Thank you very much for your attention and have a nice day.
Thank you.